The Iorì Wase podcast channel is brought to you by First Nations Fiber. Hey everyone, welcome to The Lead, where we discuss the news and events happening in the community of Kahnawake. In this episode, we discuss the controversial Bill 96, the K-Town Collectables Expo, minor hockey, and the Kahnawake Hunters.
Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
Hey everyone, my name is Jordan Standup. I am the assistant editor here at Iorì Wase, and today I am joined by our editor and publisher Greg Horn, as well as our contributing writer Marc Lalonde. And today we're here in the studio to talk about some of the news and events that are taking place in and around Kahnawake throughout the month of April. So welcome to the studio, gentlemen.
Hi Jordan, how's it going?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing, Marc?
Can't complain, Jordan.
We're going to start this particular episode off by talking about an issue that's been making waves all over the province, but more specifically here in Kahnawake, which is Bill 96. And of course, Mr. Lalonde has been providing some extensive coverage of Bill 96. So I'm going to turn it over to you for now, Marc.
Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to having a great discussion about this because there's a lot to get into. So without too much of an introduction, Bill 96 was a law proposed by the Quebec government, I believe last year, but sort of took hold in January, February when they started holding public consultations. And the idea was that it would strengthen the French language in Quebec to the point that some of the rights that are currently being enjoyed by minorities in the province would be taken away. The Quebec government doesn't necessarily see it that way, but there's been a lot of opposition here in the community to this bill, which would change a lot of the ways that life is actually run in English or in French. So give you a little bit of a rundown. Last month, the Quebec government pulled part of the bill, which would have required cégep students to take 3 core program classes in French. So you're asking, students at an English cégep who are, say, in health sciences or nursing to learn a whole new set of terms and then have to have some sort of success and understanding based on that. So the government took some of those complaints into account and made a big show 2 weeks ago of dropping the requirement of 3 program courses in French for cégep students. But a lot of the problematic issues with the bill still remain, and there's a lot of opposition here in the community towards that. I had a conversation with the KEC last week, as well as Grand Chief Sky Deer last week, and both were sort of adamant in the idea that Bill 96, as it's currently formed, even with dropping those 3 cégep courses, it still unfairly restricts the rights to minority language issues, and specifically where it stands with Indigenous communities in Quebec. Frequently, French is probably the least spoken of French, English, and Mohawk here in the community. And for a lot of people, it's a challenge. It remains a challenge. And Bill 96 would remove some of the freedoms that people enjoy, such as the rights to access to English healthcare and the rights to English services in court. So if you are a person who is seeking out healthcare and you don't have an English schooling medical certificate, they're not going to answer you in English. This is life-saving stuff or non-life-saving stuff. Here we are, not even 2 years removed from Joyce Echaquan. And here we go again with the politicization of the healthcare system. So we're talking about people being unable to get care in English for their potentially life-threatening conditions. And it is a major concern. And the same applies to the court system. So if someone has to go through the court system, they have to learn a whole new set of terms and considerations before they're able to get any service in English. So we're talking about things that have huge impacts on people's lives. And the Quebec government appears to be playing with those lives.
One of the important things to note is that, when they made their big show of dropping the French requirement in CEGEP for the requirement to take 3 core courses in the French language, they've changed it, but they didn't really change it. They changed it that instead now, if the law is adopted, that the English students in CEGEP will have to take an additional 3 French language courses, and those marks would count towards their final R score, which could be detrimental to their future university careers. Because those marks are important, and if they weren't to count towards their R scores and it was just to help them become better French speakers, then it's not tied to their potential future student careers, right? So that's a huge thing, and it should be noted too that Bill 96 is a proposed amendment to Bill 101, which is the Charter of the French language. And the goal of the Charter of French language and the goal of Bill 96 is to make the French language the only official language of Quebec. There will be certain, I guess, exemptions granted to people who could prove that they are historically Anglophones and not French speakers and this and that. And some of the healthcare stuff that Mark had discussed, it wouldn't affect those historic Anglophones, but it would affect especially new Quebecers. So whether it's somebody moving from somewhere else in Canada or somebody moving from another country. And as we were going to be seeing, and we've seen, there's an influx of refugees coming from the Ukraine and those areas, that 6 months after they arrive in the province, that they will no longer be entitled to services in English. They would have to be served exclusively in French, and that's in healthcare institutions and court systems. And a lot of times when somebody's looking for healthcare, it's at a stressful time. It's hard enough to understand medical terms when you're stressed in a situation that is very stressful. It could be a life and death situation. And then to not be able to be served in a language that you're more comfortable with, it really could mean life or death, like Mark was saying.
And that's exactly right, Greg. To your point, the law was designed to strengthen Bill 101 at a time when I don't know that the whole world, the whole province was clamoring for it. I think that respectfully to the Quebec government, respectfully or not, every time a crisis pops up, such as COVID-19, which has gutted our healthcare system and has sort of put us in a position where we realize the shortcomings of that publicly run, government-funded state healthcare system, there pops up another French-English debate in order to inflame the masses and to, create division amongst Quebecers for something that really, other than, political, doesn't seem to have a ton of impact, especially in the Montreal area, where you're talking about a lot of people who are fairly bilingual and can get along.
And I think it should be noted that this would be a very different conversation if the French language was actually in danger of being eradicated. There's millions of people around the world who speak French. There's millions of people in the province of Quebec who speak French. I was just reading a stat over the weekend that Quebec, according to the statistics, there's about 1.5 million people in the province of Quebec who are Anglophones, and there's 6 million people that live in Quebec, right? So if there's 1.5 million people that are Anglophones, the majority of people in the province are Francophones or Allophones, and they're French speakers. And the problem is the CAQ government only recognizes about 750,000 people as Anglophones in the province of Quebec. And if people don't know much about politics in Quebec, the CAQ government is a right-wing government, and they're more in line with the Republicans and in the US. And here they're creating an issue where there's no issue. And I mean, this is the same government that took issue over store clerks saying bonjour, hi, because they were being accommodating to people who may speak English without first being introduced as English. So, if somebody walks in the store saying bonjour, hi, it became a really big thing, and nobody and the Quebec government wanted to eliminate that, which is, it's a minuscule thing that turned into front page news. It was insane.
Because that's always the way it goes in Quebec. When they seek to obfuscate and obscure another issue, up pops a language debate, and this gets the hair standing up on the back of their neck. And frankly, it takes attention off of issues of real concern, such as education, healthcare, and governance.
And the issue, I think, that we're seeing here in our community is that, historically we're an English speaking community aside from Kahnawake, and from what I understand, from the the original Bill 101 debates 40 plus years ago, 45 years ago. It was something that we were like, no, we're not going to be learning French, and it's going to be very difficult. And, there's a bunch of different reasons why. But, we're an English speaking community with Mohawk speakers and some French speakers. And if we've had students have great success in post-secondary education at the CEGEP and the university level, and without having, having being French speakers or knowing much French. It's not a huge detriment to our community that we don't speak French, but it would be a good tool to have, but some people are not multiple language learners. And French is, could be a very confusing and difficult language to learn. Aside from learning Kahnawake, which is also, it could also be very difficult and intricate to learn. And then English is also a very complicated language. Speaking from experience, when Mark and I went to university together, in order to graduate, we had to prove to the journalism department that we were functionally bilingual in French. And that wasn't a government requirement. It was a departmental requirement, because they figured that if everybody who's going to Concordia journalism is going to work in the Montreal area, they're going to need to learn French. So in order to do that, we had to either take a second language French writing course. And in order to get to that, you have to do a first year French course, or you had to go and speak with a professor in the French department in French and have a formal interview. And if that professor felt that you were functionally bilingual and that you could get by as a French speaker, then you got the letter saying that certified that you're allowed to graduate. Otherwise, you're not getting a journalism degree from Concordia.
Nope. And I remember distinctly the moments before my half hour interview with a French professor, sweating bullets before I went in.
Yeah, for sure. It was the most nervous I've ever been,
because that's the last requirement we had before graduating. All of our stuff was in, all the hard stuff was done, and we had to prove a French ability, which is fine in the Montreal area. That's required. It's part of the job.
But I think I would have felt very differently had that been
a government mandate,
government requirement, saying that we had to do this and we had to do that. In post-secondary education in the province of Quebec, you're allowed to do all your assignments in either official language of the province. So you could do every assignment, even if you're going to an English school, you can do every assignment in French, because it's one of the official languages. But in order to graduate certain programs, like journalism, you have to prove that you can speak French and that you're functional in French. In all other programs, you have to pass an English exit exam, because if you have a degree in something, you should be able to write in English if you went to school in English. And at the end of the day, in certain classes, you get an exemption from that requirement. Certain programs, one of those programs is journalism, the other is English. And if you're in French, if your studies are French studies, then you get the exemption from the French requirements in certain things. So it's all different, and that's based on the educational institution. And that's where it should be based on, what you're going to school for. The government should have no bearing on what language that you have to speak.
Bill 96 is such a heavy issue, and I'm sure that we could have talked at this even more at length, and I'm certain that this is not the last we will be speaking about Bill 96. So with that being said, I would like to switch gears just ever so slightly, if that's okay with you guys, because I want to talk about a really fun event that took place at the Kahnawake Sports Complex over a period of 2 days just in April, which was the return of the K-Town Collectables Expo. And Greg, I know that you were able to take in some of the wrestling that day.
Yeah, that was, the K-Town Collectables Expo, or is in French, les Expo de Collectibles de Kahnawake. That was a very fun 2 days. It brought a lot of people together. And for the first time, the last time there was a Collectibles Expo was pre-pandemic. And there was actually supposed to be one in April 2020, but of course, everything was shut down because of the pandemic. And then, we get here, and they had a larger venue this time. It was the Kahnawake Sports Complex. There was over 150 vendors there. And then on the Sunday, the International Wrestling Syndicate, IWS, they performed a show on Saturday night at Club Soda. And some of their guys came over and did a show here in Kahnawake for everybody attending the Collectibles Expo. It was quite the show. And Kahnawake is Kyle Zachary, who is the one half of the tag team duo, that Dad Bod Squad, made his IWS debut and won over the crowd, and it was a very entertaining afternoon.
Right, and when you go to an expo like this, I know that you're no stranger to adding to your collection on a regular basis, Greg and Mark. I know that but you realize that people will collect almost anything.
Yeah,
there's markets for everybody there. Like people were selling paintings, of course, vinyl. I know, Greg, you're very much into vinyl as well. But was there anything that you purchased there that you were able to add to your collection?
I ended up I didn't buy a lot. I got a print from a local artist. They used Tommy Deer, who does fantastic work. And he's a well-known artist in the comic book world, and he sets up and he goes to Comic-Cons all over the place, and he's going to be at the Montreal Comic Con later this year, and so he had some prints available, and I was able to pick up one of those, and picked up a couple of baseball cards and a basketball card, and just some minor things, but it was really nice to get out there and just see the kind of things that people are out there collecting and selling.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a toy show. I know a lot of people like to say the toy show, but if you went into that building, you see, like I said, that there's tables for almost anything. Mark, is there anything that you like to collect?
Oh, goodness gracious. It's funny you asked that, because I have I don't have a collection the size of Greg's. I think Greg might have the most impressive sports memorabilia collection I've ever seen in my life.
Agreed.
But I some of the things I'm proudest of in my home, I have a framed autographed Dermontti Dawson jersey, the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a football offensive line nerd, so that was a thing that was really cool to me. And I have an autographed Wayne Gretzky action figure from his days at the New York Rangers, as a matter of fact. So those are two of the things I'm proudest of in my home. I've started sharing my collections with my son. He's gotten interested in old football cards. Fortunately, all the football cards from the early 90s were massively overproduced, and they can all be bought for pennies now. So my son and I go to the stores and buy these old boxes of cards for pennies on the dollar and open them up.
I might have some old football cards that might be of interest to you then.
Well, then I think that we should have a discussion after this podcast is over.
Making a large investment into your collection can sometimes be quite the gamble if things aren't as worthy as you thought. But speaking of gambling, the Playground Poker Club made quite the donation just recently to a local mom, and I know that Greg was there to talk to the mother and as well the Playground Poker Club about this.
It all started at Christmas, right before Christmas. For the last couple of years, some of the guys at Playground have been doing like a Christmas dinner food basket type of thing, and delivering food to make all the trimmings for a Christmas dinner to a number of Kahnawake families. And then this past Christmas, Michael Thomas had made a delivery to a single mother named Christila Hash, who's a mother of 10, who has a couple of sets of twins, and some are special needs and have other medical issues, and he got to know her and talking about her and talking with her and learning about her difficulties being a single mom, and having been recently in a car accident where her vehicle was used to transport her and her family in different places wasn't able to be used, and then going back and forth. And he said, well, listen, he's like, we want to help you out a little bit more. Let's try to figure something out, and we'll talk in a few weeks or so. Mike had met with the partners at Playground and also with Original Tobacco Traders, and they discussed how they could help her, and they asked her to write a letter. It's outlining her needs. And at the end of the day, they decided that they would get her a Dodge Caravan to help bring her and her kids all over the place. Because, with the pandemic ongoing, public transit and whatnot isn't always the best way. And especially if there's a few kids that need to go different places, they discussed it. And then they went shopping around for a vehicle. And the dealer that they ended up getting the vehicle from said that they would knock $2,000 off the price and include a year's worth of maintenance and oil changes as a gift to help out the single mother. By the end of it, OTT had also purchased the first year of insurance. So this was really a life-changing donation to a young mother, right? She went from being not very mobile, not be able to get her kids to daycare or to school or different things, or not even just being able to go out on a shopping trip with all her kids, right? And then she was like completely completely taken by surprise by this and extremely grateful. And you know, she's like, I'm at a loss for words. I can't even describe what it feels like, but you know, she was very grateful. You know, the guys at Playground were like, okay, you know, because in the past they've done donations and they've done different things, but I've always been low key about it. And what they want to do is try to get more people who are able to inspire more people to give back to the community, because you know, there's a lot of people who are very well off, but there's a lot of people who aren't. They want to try to get more people into that spirit of giving back, and whether they do it with Playground and through they started, you know, maybe 10 years ago, this Kahnawake Funding Association, but it kind of went by the wayside for a little while, and they start trying to revive it right before the pandemic, but the pandemic happened and it put a kibosh on that. They're trying to get that back going again. So they're looking for people who are in a similar situation as them, whether they get on board with them with the Kahnawake Funding Association or not. They just want people to be like, okay, yes, you know, let's help out our fellow community members and help make this community a better place.
Just moving along now, and although the NHL playoffs are happening now, our minor hockey team's season came to an end just last month. We had a couple of teams in the mix still in the postseason looking for some hardware, but ultimately all of our Kahnawake Minor Hockey Association teams are now officially done for the season. But that means it's time for the start of lacrosse.
Yes.
And I look directly at Greg Horn for lacrosse in almost every circumstance, but also because the Kahnawake Hunters opened their season in Aguasasne, and I believe you know a little bit about the team.
Yeah, so in the fall of 2019, the owners of the Hunters brought me on board to be the general manager of the Hunters, right? As we all know, in March 2020, we went into a pandemic, and because of that, these are the first games that I'm actually the GM for. And we went 2 full seasons without lacrosse. Kahnawake Sports Complex was closed due to for the pandemic over the last 2 summers, because as a part of the community's emergency management plan, the Kahnawake Sports Complex was set up as a backup mass casualty center or to be used as a backup vaccination center. So it needed to be available. So we went a whole hockey season without the access to the arena, and 2 whole lacrosse seasons. Getting back to hockey a little bit, we had our first full hockey season go through very successfully, and then after the season was done, they turned off the compressor and cleared the ice out and got ready for lacrosse. So Kahnawake Minor Lacrosse is also getting into the swing of things, and the Kahnawake Hunters now started and just completed a road trip to north of Toronto. And it should be noted that the Hunters are a very young team, got a few older players, a few veterans, but you know, so a lot of these kids, the last time they played, they were bantam, so they missed their entire midget career. To jump into junior, it's a huge difference, because the age group for junior is 17 to 21. So, and we have some 16-year-olds on our team, and you know, it's just one of those things that you know, there's going to be a huge learning curve. But throughout the 5 games that the Hunters have played, there's been a lot of improvement in their play, and you know, I think that the first win is coming soon. You know, hopefully, you know, there's some good things to come as the field season in the States starts to wind down. There's going to be some other players who have been playing either high school or university are going to be coming back. So that's going to be exciting, and we're really excited to see this team continue to develop.
Oh, definitely. And there was also a pretty loud crowd when the Hunters finally did make their return to the Kahnawake Sports Complex.
Yes, the home opener last Sunday against the Gloucester Griffins. That was huge. That was the first lacrosse game played at the Kahnawake Sports Complex since the gold medal game of the 2019 President's Cup.
Wow.
People have been wanting lacrosse. Last summer, you know, Kirby Joe, Daibo and Garrett Cree, they started this Kahnawake Lacrosse League that played you know, pickup games at the rink on I believe Wednesday nights for throughout the summer, you know, and so people got to see some lacrosse, and you know, some of our local athletes got to play lacrosse, but it's not the same as an official game, right? So to have that game, you know, back at the sports complex on a Sunday afternoon, the place was packed and loud, and you know, it was really something to see, and to finally see our players back on the floor after so long.
You know, just going back to something I said a little bit earlier about the Kahnawake Minor Hockey Association being finished for the season, that doesn't necessarily mean that our Kahnawake hockey players are finished for the season, because in April we had quite a few players that were trying out for the men's and women's team of Team Eastern Door and the North, right?
Yeah, and the National Aboriginal Hockey Championship is taking place in Nova Scotia this week. Both men's and women's team feature Kahnawake players and I believe Kahnawake coaches. So, as they continue to go, we'll be hearing more about them. There's also players that are out trying out for different teams over the next few weeks for next season. And so there's still a lot of hockey action going on. And there was a team from Kahnawake in a triple letter tournament in Cornwall a couple of weeks ago. And there's all kinds of things that are happening. And I think our hockey players always find a way to keep busy throughout the year.
I've been able to get out onto the links twice already so far this season. And of course, golf is one of the things that I'm most looking forward to in the coming weeks. Greg, I know you're also an avid golfer, so I was just wondering what you guys are looking forward to doing as the weather continues to improve in the next couple of weeks.
Getting out there and playing some golf a little bit more. Hopefully my back holds out. And then, the Kahnawake Mixed Softball League kicked off as this premieres on Wednesday. It'll be night 2 of the Kahnawake Mixed Softball League. The opening pitch is Tuesday, was Tuesday at 6 p.m. So, we're, it's looking like it's going to be a busy summer over here.
Are you still on the boys roster this season?
For now.
Looking forward to seeing you out on the field. And how about you, Mark?
Well, I'm super excited about the spring because of all the wonderful things that come with it. The nice weather, the ability to get out and enjoy the fresh air, playing some rounds of golf with my brand new KahnawakeNews.com golf balls, which are pretty exciting.
Iorì wase golf balls. Come on.
Iorì wase golf balls. They are fabulous, and they add 10 yards to your drives. That is not made up. That is a thing.
That is made up completely.
I'm going to take a second now and brag on my kids because my son is excited he's going to a flag football tournament in Boston over the June 23rd, 25th weekend. And it's a national championship of American flag football. And his flag football team just won their season, their Montreal Area League season yesterday. And my daughter's hockey team won their Montreal Meltdown AAA girls tournament as well. So it was a huge day, and I'm looking forward to some of the amateur sports that take up all of the time in my schedule going by the wayside for a little bit is what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to you guys for coming in today and getting together to do this with me today. And I'm sure we'll be back at it talking again with you guys soon. So now I'll go.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for listening to The Lead. Be sure to check out our other podcasts like Meatheads and The Beating Table on Google and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast.